very talented. And the other person we lost was Mark Allen Whitman. He had the F Street Garage for a long time, and then when that closed, he opened the Blue Lake Iron Works. So for those two Blue Lakers, I'd like us to have a minute of silence after our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Thank you. Would you establish a quorum of the council, please?
Mayor Brown,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Scholl,
Present.
Councilmember Stefani,
Here.
Member Ecker,
Here.
Okay, we are on item 4, approval of the agenda. Is there anyone first from council that would like to move anything around? No. No. Okay, me neither. Anyone from public that would like to move anything around in the agenda? Okay, we'll come back to council for a motion and a second to approve the agenda as delivered.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Angela Scholl, seconded by Christopher Edgar to approve the agenda as delivered. Any further discussion from council? Any input from public? Back to council for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We have an agenda. Item 5, public comment. The public is invited to present petitions, make announcements, or provide other information to the city council that is relevant to the scope of authority of the city of Blue Lake that is not on the agenda. The council may provide up to 15 minutes for this public input session. To assure that each individual presentation is heard, the council may uniformly impose time limitations of 3 minutes to each individual presentation. The public will be given the opportunity to address items that are on the agenda at the time the council takes up each specific agenda item. Is there any public comment? Kent Solotsky and Kat. And I see someone, is that Julie?
Julie.
Okay, so we'll do it in that order.
Pass out.
Ed Sawatsky, I attended supervisors today. It's election time, and there's certain ballot measures out there. I am coming out against Measure O. There are the reasons that will be on your ballot there. Thought I'd get this out there now. You had 13 pages of really shiny things brought to you, I think, as a presentation. You should be in favor. Not a single city that I've contacted to endorse this. I don't think you have either. I strongly suggest, for the reasons you see before you, that you vote no on this particular item. It's a 1 cent sales tax, and we are not guaranteed to get a single penny of it, yet it comes out of our tax. We may wish to tax different things in the future. Thank you for my opportunity to bring that to your attention. And I guess we can put out political signs now, Audley. I asked to have clarification. I'm going to put mine out. So as far as I can tell, we can now. They are in Eureka. So anyway, I did wish to, tank acquisition is not on the agenda. I sent a email to be put into correspondence for you folks. I went up there the other day. I was going up there with Aaron to do Aaron McClure. She fights with two fists. Basically do a site inspection up there to see what's going on because I am her consultant on that. And I went up there and the city had apparently Mandy had given permission for SHN or somebody to do drilling up there, and that was not proper. They ceased and desist and left upon request. when I went up there, I observed what the asset was. It's one of the most beautiful sites, building sites I can see around. So me as being her consultant, I'm going to recommend to her that you didn't take her up on potential offer before, that that be taken off the table, and she probably will, and that it be appraised as far as a residential site. I think it's probably a something that I would value in the neighborhood of 300, 400, maybe $500,000 based upon current market value. So that assessment will be made, and that is the value of the property. There's different uses for it, and residential is a prime one. It's one of the most beautiful sites, same as what my family has across the road up there on Buckley Road. So anyway, I wanted to update you on that. I do find it a little distressing that during a situation when you're trying to be in negotiations and people aren't supposed to be up there really to have this kind of thing move forward, and maybe Mr. Fogat here wants to own it, but it basically comes down to Mandy. That's her responsibility as far as permission and what's done up there. She's Director of Public Works and is aware and directs that thing. Just not the way to enter into negotiations with somebody when you're trying to get a deal done. So thank you for the opportunity to speak on these topics today.
Kat, you were next, and then we'll go to Julie.
All right. Hi, nice to see you guys again. I was asked to take a look on Greenwood with the progress that we're making with the sidewalk. There were a couple of concerns about damages there. The finished product is really looking nice. It's wonderful to see what, we hope will be good traffic calming measures. Um, in the middle of this, though, what I'm seeing is there seems to be a great deal of negligence in preventing damages along the way. Just my walk on the one side here at 311 Greenwood, there is concrete splatter on their foundation, on their skirting, on the house, on the fence, and on the gate. At 321 Greenwood, splatter on the fence, abrasions on the lower fence. 341 Greenwood, splatter on the fence, spillage outside of the forms, abrasions on the lower fence, damage to some boards. 415 Greenwood, splatter on the newel post, on the foundation skirting, and on the vinyl corner post. 435 Greenwood, form boards left in place, splatter in house, and on the foundation skirting. And then we have, I didn't get the address, but the wonderful house on the corner of Blue Lake Boulevard and Greenwood. And that's the one with a rounded fence, a little picket fence. And there was splatter on those pickets, on the rails. There's damage to pickets. There's damage to some of the rails, some of the skirting below. And it continues on throughout it at almost every single residence. There was damage. And damage does happen in construction. But the good news in this is nearly all of this damage was 100% preventable by using either 6 mil plastic, a visqueen to cover the splatter area. When we're doing excavation, you can put out even a 1/4 inch plywood leaning against these. It kind of unifies that fence together. So as you're digging and excavating nearby, it doesn't undermine that fence. It doesn't hurt that fence. So I think that this is kind of a case of what you get when you get the lowest bidder is sometimes corners get cut. And I think this is one of those corners that shouldn't be cut. Um, there was only one fence that I saw that didn't have splatter or damage to it, and that was at the Perry's, also on Greenwood. And it was also in very new condition. So it almost conveys like, oh, there's a respect for these fences, but not for others. Well, anybody who is near City Hall and sees me working in my yard probably saw me scrubbing like a maniac on my fence twice over, staining it out. There was absolutely no reason that I should fear to have damage on my fence. And so I'm bringing it to the attention of City Council, City Manager, and to my fellow citizens of Blue Lake to please insist that we have normal precautions in place to prevent damage. 3 minutes. Done.
Thank you. Ours indicated that as well. Julie, you're next.
Good evening. How is my volume in house tonight?
Good.
Okay, thank you. I would like to just give council a good thank you for acknowledging Nancy. We had a very good meeting last night. Also thank you for letting the community of Glendale use the Skinner store. And Justin, as always, for recording that meeting that we had for everybody that couldn't be there. I think it's really important, and hopefully a lot of council and residents will take the time to review that meeting. I think it was a really good example of the importance of community planning and interaction. Um, all the kids from Blue Lake did amazing at the fair. I'm really proud of all of them. And there was a lot of local businesses as well that were there. I'm really proud of them for showing up. I I do understand we have applications for planning this evening. However, my request in particular for the agenda item was very specific, that didn't make it, but it was the discussion on how projects and negotiations are happening outside the preview of commission and council. I know some were directed to staff, but I don't believe all of them have been correctly directed to staff. And I do concur with not endorsing Measure O. And I do concur with our other speaker on some corners being cut with the projects. We'll see how that evolves along Greenwood. I also would like to see if maybe it's possible on staff's end to turn up the volume side of the participants, maybe for some reason. I've had this happen quite a few meetings ago, but for this meeting, it's a little harder to hear you guys on our end. Thank you very much for my public comment. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Julie. Is there any other public comment? Aaron?
Erin McClure, thanks for letting me speak. So I'm just going to reiterate what Kent said. As you guys all know, because you went into closed sessions, I made you an offer on the water tanks and it was turned down, which is fine. After that, I did talk to your city attorney, and him and I decided together that it was fine for me to go ahead and take control of the gate, put my own lock on the gate, let Glenn in and out of there as he needs to. He just has to call me and I can let him in and out, and that no one else was to go up there. So I went up there yesterday to put the new lock on the gate. And when I got there, the gate was wide open. So I drove in, and SHN was in there digging holes, digging big holes. So when I asked them what was going on there, they said this is owned by the city of Blue Lake. Look, they gave us the key, and we're here to figure out if we're going to build a new water tank here. So, I mean, this is like something you'd see in a movie. I drove it and saw that. Pretty heartbreaking, honestly. I think my grandfather was rolling over in his grave. Numerous calls into Mandy Maker, who never returns any of my calls at all. And I would hope that the city council might want to have their city manager be a little bit more professional than that. Although your city attorney is in contact with me all the time. I called him immediately, who said he was astonished at what had happened, to go ahead and tell SHN to get out of there, and I did. And they were all nice and polite and left as they should. But I also filed a complaint with the sheriff's department and asked them to contact Mandy, which I'm sure that they did. So it's just really sad that this kind of thing has to get this far. So now I'm going to oversee my own land. I'm not going to cause a problem with any maintenance or anything that needs to be done with the tank. But until we get this solved, this mountain crew is not going to come there and dig any more holes. And knowing that I don't authorize and there will be going on there. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment this evening? Okay. Um, concerning the item that was mentioned by two of our public, from what I understand, SHN was just taking some soil samples. They had arranged this before and it had been agreed upon. So it wasn't anything large. It wasn't any large drilling. But I would like staff, if they want to respond to this. I know, Mike, on behalf of SHN, maybe you would like to make a remark about this, because from what I understand, it was something that was agreed upon before, but maybe in the future we need to notify the owner.
So I wanted to clarify what was going on. We were doing geotechnical boring for replacing the water tank. So we have a grant we've been working on for 3 years for a hazard mitigation grant. Both those tanks are old.
They have no
They need-
lease, you don't even know if you'll have a tank there.
I'll just state what tasks that we're working on. We have 2 water tanks that are old, that are in disrepair. We had one that had the chainsaw taken to it here, a year or 2 ago. That lost 400,000 gallons worth of water. So we're trying to replace the 2 redwood tanks that are leaking. We have to drain the tanks and repair them right now because they do leak, and we're having problems maintaining the tanks. So we were fortunate to secure FEMA funds for hazard mitigation. They're up there doing geotechnical boring. So this has actually been planned for a while. So I mean, for not reaching out to you, Aaron. So I do apologize for that. So that,
As you know, you talked to
yeah.
Aaron,
Okay, at
Wait.
this time,
So
okay,
that's
we
what
need
they
to
were
just,
doing.
we were
with
quiet
the
when you
drill
were
rigs.
speaking. We need to be quiet during Mike. What was
That-
the
that's
last thing you said? I'm sorry. I
No,
missed
so we're doing geotechnical borings because what's important is when these tanks were put in, 40, 50 years ago, seismic codes and design codes have changed. So to put in new tanks, we need current information to design to current design standards.
Thank you. Any other staff comment on this item?
Yeah, just to reiterate kind of what Mike said, we apologize that this happened at the time that this was scheduled months ago for the geotech work to take place. We were kind of at a different place in this process. The geotech crew didn't know requirement to make contact first with the property owner, and we take full responsibility for not doing that, and we apologize for that, and that won't happen again. As far as any interactions with myself, I've been trying to keep everything going through the attorney with Miss McClure because this is an active negotiation, and it's better for Ryan to be responsive to her requests and so that it goes through a single entity. And Ryan's been very responsive, I think, to any time that Aaron has called, and we've made sure that those connections are made. So that's the reason for myself deferring to Ryan through this because we are like I said, in active negotiations, and it just seems more appropriate to stay between the attorney and Ms. McClure.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any other comments or from staff or council? All right, let's move on then. We are on item 6, the City of Blue Lake Commission appointments, discussion and action. The City of Blue Lake has received applications for open positions on the Park and Recreation Commission, the Planning Commission, and the Arts and Heritage Commission. Jeff Bird has applied for the Parks position. Elaine Hogan and Matthew Shang are reapplying for the open seats on the Planning Commission. And our former council member, Elizabeth McKay, applied for the Arts and Heritage Commission. And these are very qualified people. I was very impressed with their resumes and their background experience. Really, really, we are very lucky to have such qualified folks, and I really thank them for serving the city of Blue Lake. I always thank these commissioners for their work. I started out as a park commissioner myself. I was a park commissioner for 8 years, and I was also the planning commission secretary for a year. And it really helps when you have that background of being involved in a commission to then come forward and then move onward and as you would. So we have our background applications here, and we'll leave it now to the council to discuss or ask any questions of staff.
Yeah, staff, is there any overlap, like people fighting for a position, or are these all open positions?
So these are all open positions, and a few of these are people re-upping their
Mhm.
current term.
So there's nobody going for the same seat?
I have a concern about the residents of one of the applicants for the planning commission. So I'd like to propose that we hold Matthew Shang's application over till next month until that can be clarified.
Did he
He's
move?
not currently living in Blue Lake.
When did that happen?
I don't have
We
an
don't have
exact
any
date,
change of
but it's
residence for
been
him.
quite some period of time. So, as his until he can, let us know if he's going to be moving back or when, I think he should not be appointed.
Well, he indicates in his application that he lives in the in
He
town.
owns a home and it's right near mine and he's not currently living in it. And I did reach out to him today, hoping to get some clarification, but I unfortunately didn't do it as
So he
early
pays
as I
the
would have
water bill
liked,
at
and
his
we haven't heard
residence?
back.
Yeah, we haven't had any change of any of his
He
utilities or anything.
pays the water bill at his
Mhm.
residence, PG&E bill at his residence.
I don't know about PG&E, but
Well,
definitely the water
yeah,
bill.
okay, yeah, you wouldn't know about PG&E, right? Yeah.
Could he be on vacation or something like that?
No, he isn't.
Hmm.
It's not my place to say, other than to note that he is not currently living in city limits, and so I think that we should hold that until such time as we can determine if he'll be moving back in and make sure he's clear on the resident requirement for the commission.
What's the possibility of people having two residences and claiming one residence as their primary residence? I mean, does that, sorry, what is, if people own two residences and claim one residence as their primary, does that count as being residence?
I think this question has come up before because we have other people in the same situation that seem to have a residence in Blue Lake but live elsewhere. And it was determined by our legal counsel that there has to be some type of qualifying determination on that residency. So if someone is claiming that as their residence, on track, they could, um, it's difficult to determine what um, when someone is an active resident versus maybe they're traveling for work. They could be,
Right.
out in the field for work, but still actively maintain their residence. So they could be using residence just to, um, for storage. We have people in town that do that. And whether that precludes them, I think it's very hard to make that distinction if they're not finding another location for voting reasons or other things. So it does become difficult. We do have a lot of people in town, like I said, that are, do field work. They might do field work for 4 to 6 months out of the year, but their residence is still identified as Blue Lake. So I think it's difficult to make that determination if they brought that forward themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I know that like Eureka, I know that there's like, traveling folks in Eureka, and I'm speaking from like personal
Mhm.
perspective, but they own their home in Eureka. They don't live there full time, but they pay their water bill. No one else lives there, but it's their primary residence. So I didn't know like how that applies in terms of,
Yeah, and
a
if that's
position like
their
that.
registered voter location,
Right.
this is the first I've heard. Matt hasn't said anything to us about changing his residence.
Okay.
In fact, I think I saw his wife today in the park. So I'm not sure. I mean, we could reach out, but we haven't been told anything, and I don't necessarily have a way to make any type of determination unless they actively, bring that information forward themselves. So
Okay.
Yeah, registering to vote would be a good indication too, but there's no way of us knowing that. Well, it is the pleasure of the council, and then we will make some determinations.
Well, I would like to move that we appoint all of the applicants other than Matt and hold Matt's application over until next month, until we can clarify.
What is the planning commission currently having a quorum with the amount of people that are on there, Mandy?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Are you good?
So we don't have any problem with quorums for the planning commission. What we have a problem with is we don't have any project for this time. So the planning commission only meets if they have an actual project or there's something that the planner forward. So our application or project, the city doesn't hold a meeting every month. We haven't had a problem with quorums.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to appoint Elaine Hogan to the Planning Commission, Jeff Burr to the Parks and Recreation Commission, and Elizabeth McKay to the Arts and Heritage Commission, made by Elise Scafani. Before I take the vote, I'll ask if there's public input. Jean, and then Kent, and then Julie.
Hey, everybody. So, we're looking at applications for the Plan Commission, very important position here in town. And I think the Planning Commission has met 3 times in the year. And evidently it's not due to a quorum, but because there is no project that is surfacing to be discussed. But in spite of that, it's an important decision that I think needs public input and not just a vote without the people that are going to be our public commission members and be responsible for the public being able to have a voice for the commission on what is happening and having public input as to positions, having the people not be here and having us unable to ask any questions is not doing a good service to the position of commission members. I'd like to see that happen. Maybe move that to a different time to have the people that are applying to be able to have a discussion with the people that want them as commission members. This is about a voice for the public, which I think is being ignored at this time. The importance of the public and the citizens of Blue Lake to have opinions. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
What Jean said, I had a major compliment paid to me at the Grange the other morning during the clutch. Ms. Cantaneri was in there and she said, "You're the only person that I know that in the supervisor's chambers would go down the list of every single applicant and cross their references." What I do. First of all, I say to the supervisors, when you're in the forum, if the person's not in the room to speak for themselves, then they don't have enough heart to be in the position. Now, maybe they have a family emergency. They want to call in or say, "I can't be here." Maybe they want to Zoom, but that's distressing. It's an important position for them not to be here. That bothers me. I technically, if you go by the criteria you're saying, I'm a legal resident in just about every single city in Humboldt County, including the Hoopaw Reservation, because I own property there. Technically, I can have a residence there. I pay water bills in these places. I have PG&E in these places that I pay. So it's just whether the person lives there or not. It's plain and simply, do they live there? We have a problem right now, I believe, on our Blue Lake School Board, where a person goes home and leaves the meeting and goes to Cotton, and yet they have to reside there. So we are watching to do with T's and dot I's. Strongly suggest, my opinion, you should table the whole thing until people are sitting in the room. If there's somebody here who wants to lobby for themselves, that's great. But at least go with the motion that's on the table here. Yeah, people do wish to have the opportunity to have eye contact, talk to, have questions for, the same as you should be willing to do or should request that the people be here in the room. Just because we haven't had anything for the planning commission to do, there's a whole bunch of things they could have been doing. They could have been working on the general plan update, thing to work on during the time when they don't have anything else to do. There's a whole bunch of other T's to cross and I's to dot regarding the planning process that they could be working on. And this is what John Ford does in Humboldt County when they aren't loaded with a whole bunch of permits for something. They do workshops, they get the things done that they need to do so they can do them when they're not being pushed. That's what should have been happening during the last 9 meetings or 8 meetings or 7 meetings. Planning Commission wasn't having. And a good share of the people in the Planning Commission came forward and they said, during the summer, I'm going to be gone in Alaska here, I'll be gone there. There wouldn't have been a quorum if you even tried to get one. And they had to have a special meeting to deal with something to work around everybody's schedule. So to say that there's no reason why we're not having those meetings is a little bit disingenuous to the public, and we really wish that the process would be a little bit more so we could participate think that's what the public wants to have. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Julie?
Yes, Julie Christie again. Thank you for taking my comments. I do concur with Kent a bit there. I wish the applicants were there. I think it's important that you take that time to be there. I unfortunately could not be there, so I did not put in my application. So I would like to also comment on Elaine's application, that who is reapplying. I personally have concerns, given her position with the Great Redwood Trail, that those positions do not conflict with each other. Other applicants to be representatives for that program were denied over conflict of interest in the supervisors chamber. So I hope we can be privy on that. I also hope that all the applicants have taken time to review timelines, because if people are wise, they cannot be exploited. I do thank them for their applications, and I hope it's for all the productive reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment? Back to council. Did you make the
I
motion?
made a motion.
Okay,
Believe we have
motion made? No, right. I was keeping track of that. So Elise Scafani made a motion to appoint Elaine Hogan to the Planning Commission, Jeff Bird to the Parks and Rec, and Elizabeth McKay to Arts and Heritage. And I would love for people to come to meetings, and when they do, we do ask them questions, but you never know exactly what people's lives are like. So I would appreciate them coming, but if they can't, we understand that as well. Um,
But I also think part of that problem is we've never required them to. So, I mean, I think that, yes, it would be great to have them here. I mean, I know that when I applied to be appointed to a position on the Blue Lake, Fire Protection District, I showed up, but we've never required folks to be here. And so if that's something that we want folks to do, I think we need to make that expectation known. So by not making that expectation clear, we've created a situation where, show up or not, that's on us as a council, to be quite honest, because that's the expectation that we've created. So
yeah, well,
that's
I
on
mean,
us as much as them not showing up.
I understand that. I wouldn't want to make it mandatory. I would want
I
that
would.
to be,
I would
I would,
Absolutely, they
make
should
it
be here.
mandatory.
If they
okay,
want to be on
well,
a commission, they need to be here
They need to
to
be part of this.
advocate for their position. So,
okay.
but I mean, so by them not being here, my point is we've never required them to.
No, we never
That
have.
onus is on us as
And
a
the other
council.
thing is we don't have anybody fighting for position.
Right.
And previous people that have gone for vacant spots and multiple people, they would show up. But since
Mhm.
there isn't any vacancies, nobody feels an obligation to show up and speak their mind.
Mhm.
Which
That's
I agree
fine.
with Angela on this.
Yeah.
Like they should be here to speak with the public and
Right.
tell them what their ideas are.
Right.
Yeah.
But we've never required them to do so.
In
That's
the
on
past,
us.
we've had people come and talk to us when they've been here, but you're right, it's not mandatory. And we might want to look at that as a possibility for the future.
Yep.
I'm completely open to that.
But um back to Matthew, I mean, he's already on the planning commission. There's not been an indication that he's actually moved out of his residence. No one's seen a moving van. I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt that their residence still is there. I would not want to exclude him based upon that fact. So I'm not comfortable with excluding him um,
Yeah.
without. I mean, I'm of the indication to give him the benefit of the doubt based upon his 10 years of being a resident. And good Lord, we all know when people move out, the moving van shows up. I know when people move out of my neighborhood, it's not that difficult, you know. Um, I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I have no problem with giving him the benefit of the doubt, but I think that we should ask him to confirm and give him time to do that.
I think we could appoint him and then I think we could appoint him, giving him the benefit of the doubt.
I think the way that our municipal code is written, a planning commission member continues to serve even after the expiration of their term until they are replaced. So there's no problem in leaving him where he is right now and asking him to confirm his residence, and we can reappoint him next month if he confirms that he'll be moving back into his house.
No. What do you mean move back into his house? We don't know that he's actually moved out.
I do that. I do know that.
I
That's what I'm trying to
don't-
say, Angela.
I don't know. I say that we appoint him and make him prove that he's moved out. If he's still paying the water bill and he's still a registered voter, no. No. I don't agree with that at all.
Well, we have a motion on the floor, and it doesn't sound like we're getting a second. So would we like to make a new motion?
I mean, I would motion that we approve all of the applicants. But I mean, again, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. If he's still paying his water bill, he's still a registered voter in Blue Lake. And that's been the litmus test thus far. We go with the litmus test thus far.
I'd just like to point out that there's a possibility that he's not aware that residence is a requirement of this commission. It is not a requirement of all the other commissions. All the other commissions have a sphere of influence clause as to membership in the commission. So I want to give Matthew the benefit of the doubt and say that he may not realize that he needs to be living in his house in order to be a member of this particular commission. And I don't want to discuss it any further. I think we're beating a dead horse here.
Okay, so we have one motion that died for a second. We have another motion that's waiting for a second.
We have an obligation to keep the stuff going, but I think with the caveat of him coming in and saying something about his
Residency.
residence.
Yeah. If the commission is not dead in the
Is-
water due to a
and-
lack of quorum, right?
Plus, there's nothing we can do if he says, yes, that's my primary residence, and still he lives somewhere else. There's nothing we can do about that. Because he can claim that's his primary residence, even if he lives somewhere else. Unless there's someone else living there. That's not him.
There is someone else living there. That is not him. It is not his family.
That wasn't brought up. You didn't say that when we were
Well,
asking.
I'm trying not to air the man's business in
Yeah,
front of
I think
everybody.
you guys are getting very personal to someone's private business, and I think that you probably need to
it
roll
shouldn't
this
be a
back
big
in.
deal.
You have
Okay.
an application in front of you. He states that he's a part of the community, that he wants to continue to serve in the same capacity. I think he is very well aware of the rules and obligations. I just think you need to be careful about going in a direction that's more based on maybe hearsay than we don't know people's personal situations. So
100%.
So there's a motion that I think that there's a motion on the floor. Well, maybe not. I'm going to second your motion to approve all these applicants. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have a vote. Okay. All those in favor?
Is there public comment yet?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
we did.
Yes, we did.
I forgot. It's been
Yeah.
so long.
Yeah. It's fine, but thank you. All right. All those in favor of the motion made by Angela Shaw, seconded by Adeline Jones, to appoint Elaine Hogan and Matthew Shang to the Planning Commission, Jeff Bird to the Park and Rec Commission, and Elizabeth Kay to Arts and Heritage Commission, say aye.
Hi.
Aye. Opposed?
Sorry.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, let's move on. And this is the way government works. Okay,
Yep.
let's move on to the City of Blue Lake Economic Development Administration grant presentation, the Powers Creek Development Concept. This will be a presentation and discussion, no action on this item. And by way of giving you some general information, the city received funding from the Economic Development Administration under the 2019 Disaster Recovery Program to analyze economic opportunities in the city of Blue Lake with a focus on recreation investment. The city was funded to analyze the development of an RV park and a campground, along with support businesses that could be visible in the event that the RV park and campground was deemed feasible. The city has completed a multi-year assessment, which included numerous meetings with community members, local and regional investors, industry leaders, Blue Lake commissions, and local business operators. The city hired Storyland Studios to conduct the analysis, facilitate the outreach, and to develop the project performas and architectural renderings. Storyland Studios has finalized the development analysis, and staff will present the results of the study along with conceptual drawings reflecting future investment concepts. And let's keep that idea of concept in there. Okay.
Great. Well, thank you. So this is a culmination of a couple of years worth of work. And as Mayor Jones explained, the city of Blue Lake received a grant from EDA in the amount of $222,000. This was funding that was procured under the 2019 Disaster Recovery Act and was specifically for communities to look at transitioning their economies over to economic ventures that were more sustainable and resilient to disasters. The city was able to secure the funding due to our transition from a more industrial centered type of industrial community over to more of a recreation, arts, culture, tourism type of economic interest. The city was able to show the connection as the industries that we had historically relied upon for our economic base had suffered impacts through various natural disasters, impacts, downturns in industries, climate issues, and other impacts that precluded us from continuing to support that as our economic base. So, one of the things that was brought up a number of years ago, probably over 25 years ago, through the city's visioning process, was the idea of an RV park and campground and more focus on arts, culture, and tourism. So, we went out through a competitive process to bring on a consultant to help us through this process to evaluate what our opportunities could be. We have the Powers Creek District. We knew that we were transitioning out of the kind of the era of the biomass operation and looking at what the city could do to set themselves up in a position to um, come out of that transition with a new focus. So we chose Storyland Studios. Their focus really is more larger scale resort developments. They do a lot of work, kind of like the Disney resorts and different things, but they're very good storytellers, and that was something that we really wanted to have assistance with because it's very hard to go down into the Powers Creek district and see the old industrial kind of downturn and see the open properties and have a vision for something new. And so we needed someone or a team to be able to help us with the visioning process. And that's really what Storyland really excels at. So through the process, we had a lot of meetings. We did a lot of community outreach. We did a lot of industry outreach. We started to kind of synthesize this idea of what they came together as calling the camp in Blue Lake. So this is a concept. It's really looking at what options the city has for future ideas. It helps guide us in a way that we can kind of focus our efforts in recreation economies, but also allows flexibility for the community and the city to look at economic interests. So I'm going to go through the slides. I apologize, this isn't in a PowerPoint form. These are just PDFs. But this is the development plan that they put together for us. So we'll be able to take this information out onto the open market at some point to see if there's any interest in what the city has together. So the idea of the camp was to kind of create this either a base camp or a launch pad is kind of how they saw it. So you could either stay in Blue Lake and recreate and enjoy your time at an RV park and campground, or you could come to Blue Lake, stay, but go out and explore all the other wonderful things that our region has to offer. So we know that we're surrounded by beautiful redwoods. We're surrounded by multiple beautiful rivers. We have lots of trails, ocean, beaches, lots of opportunities for people to recreate. Blue Lake is looking at the opportunity to be able to be a place where people can either come back to or stay and participate in our own recreation. Because recreation is something that Blue Lake's always done really well. If you look at our beautiful parks, our skating program, our horse arenas, the trails that are being developed, the Mad River, steelhead fisheries, and just the general fun that we have in the summer. Blue Lake's got a lot to offer, but our region has a lot more to offer that the city of Blue Lake could market. So the camp, they were talking, the concept that came out was the camp is the only sunny base camp in Humboldt County that provides the best opportunities for outdoor enthusiasts to explore the Redwood Coast and experience a premier recreation destination worth returning to. So the idea of the camp was also to create memories for people visiting, for families, and becoming that place that people want to return to. So a lot of the focus was about what does our area have to offer? What does the Mad River have to offer? What does our general setting have to offer? So the other kind of tagline was a natural setting along the Mad River that once played host to timber mills will welcome its guests to experience a sustainable environment where they can replenish, recharge, and refuel. This inclusive community seeks to connect with all that Mother Nature has to offer. People can come for the adventure and stay for the memories. So these are kind of, those little taglines, but they wanted what came out of our visioning sessions and our outreach and our meetings, what was a focus on the natural, memorable, sustainable connectivity and inclusivity. We had a lot of project partners as part of this project. When I wrote the grant, I specifically wrote it to meet some of the objectives of the county SEDS, and that's a comprehensive economic development strategy. And the city has really been trying to put themselves at kind of the forefront with the county to say, Blue Lake has a lot to offer. Even though we're small, we do still have a big part to play in the economic success of the county overall. So don't count us out. Look at what we have as value items and make sure that we're at the table. So when we wrote the grant, we did write in a lot of partnership opportunities. So as part of this, we worked with the Humboldt County Economic Development Department. We worked with the Redwood Region Economic Development, I believe that's corporation, right? Not commission. REDEC.
Redwood Region Economic Development Corporation.
Yeah, not commission, corporation. Arcadia Economic Development Corporation. We worked with the Prosperity Network, the Tourism and Marketing Bureau. We had support from Congressman Huffman. We worked with the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors, the Blue Lake Chamber of Commerce. Obviously, the City Council was involved, and all of our commissions. So, Economic Development, Parks and Rec, Planning Commission, and Public Safety Commission were all a big part of this. The authorized project budget was $222,000. That's what we received from EDA, and then our match was $55,627, bringing the total grant to $278,000. We were able to use staff time and in-kind match to meet our match requirement. So it was really a great opportunity to take the work that the city was already doing and multiply its value across a larger sector. So we also had pledged support from Arcadia Economic Development, REDEC, Humboldt County Economic Development, and then our different commissions as well. We also work closely with Gary Reese, our city planner. At the time, there was a lot going on with the Opportunity Zone and just kind of refocusing our efforts on bringing some type of economy back to Blue Lake and how that would be portrayed down in the Powers Creek district. Our city engineer was a big part of that, as well as Glenn, our public works superintendent. So looking at capacity, looking at our infrastructure. So we had a lot of good focus and expertise as we were going through this process. So this was just a quote out of our grant. The city sees a bright future for our community and our region, and we're excited to work with EDA as we close the chapter on our industrial history and reemerge as a more resilient and balanced community. And that was really the focus of the grant: is what can the city do? What kind of investment can the city make to build a more resilient community for ourselves? As we've lost industry and as we've lost those jobs and that economy, what do we replace it with? Because as a city, we can't sustain ourselves as a bedroom community. We can't sustain ourselves without revenue. But we don't have to sell our soul also for economic gain. We can do this in a very balanced way that brings economy, but it also brings value to the community as a whole. So that was something that we also really wanted to look at is, if an RV park and campground were to come to fruition, what are some of the other support structures that might come as part of that? Could that be a little market? Could it be a recreation store? Could it be more food businesses? Could it be an ice cream shop? Could it be a bike shop? So looking at how those economies play off each other, and then what value does that bring to the average Blue Lake citizen? This is just some quotes from Scott Adair and Greg Foster. They were big supporters of this project. They took a lot of time to review the results of the study. They also took a lot of time to talk with Storyland, to talk with their experts in these fields to get a good feel for the county and what were some of the needs of the county, especially when you're looking at tourism. What are some of the gaps that the county was seeing that maybe the city of Blue Lake could fill? One of the big gaps, obviously, is we haven't built a new RV park and campground in decades in the county. And so as that industry is moving along, the county's not really keeping up with the needs of that industry. So when you look at what the new RVs look like or what people's expectations now are of an RV or camping experience, it's different than what it was 30 years ago. And that was literally about when we built the last new one. I think, and I should say, I think River Walk in Fortuna was probably in the last 18 to 20 years. Um, but there hasn't been anything new in our region to really focus on kind of what the needs of the new modern day RV camper is looking for. So they were both very supportive of the project and were, like I said, were great at reviewing our applications, looking at our pro formas, and just making sure that we were on track with kind of what the county's over view of the region's needs are. So the idea was to create a high quality RV resort that takes advantage of tourists to Humboldt County and Redwood National and State Parks. Um, the national and state parks. There's hundreds of thousands of people that come to our state and national parks every year, and really the city would need to capture a very small percentage of that to really help our economic future. So the study went through, they did a full economic analysis, they did a demographic analysis, they went through and broke down the current populations, median ages, household incomes, and then they also went through and broke it down further to industries. So looking at what the average traveler looks like. So there's a lot of data that goes behind this whole proposal. We started looking, we kind of narrowed our focus down to the power plant site, about 20 acres right near the river. The nice thing about the power plant site too is it's kind of, it's kind of segregated a little bit from the higher density residential areas of Blue Lake. So if you live in Northfield Terrace, you could literally drive home every day and back to work or whatever, and you would never have to interact with the Powers Creek district unless you really wanted to, which I think it's a great space and and everyone should take advantage of it. But it doesn't have the largest a big impact on like the largest density of our residents in Blue Lake. Obviously, there would be an impact, along the truck route, but those are things that have been kind of factored into as we looked at the capacity of the truck route itself. So part of this project was to do a full market analysis to really look at, is this something that's viable for Blick? Is it something that's just viable in Humboldt County overall? Because what we're finding now is that, Blue Blue Lake's not that far, and that's become one of our marketing monikers is, Blue Lake, it's closer than you think. It's literally 6 miles from Arcata. It's really not that far. And if you want to come out to the sun, it's, it feels like even less of a burden to come out to Blue Lake. So it's really not so much would people come to Blue Lake. It's more about looking at the industry, looking at its sustainability, and looking at the growth potential of the industry. So part of this is analysis of amenities. They looked at what all the current lodging systems have, and then kind of analyzed the gaps. This is just a statistic about the industry itself, how it's growing and how it's projected to continue to grow. And I think we saw with COVID, everyone went, people went out and bought camping trailers. They were looking for ways to get out but still be contained. You couldn't find a trailer for 2 years. It seemed like the industry just got wiped out of inventory. It's a growing industry. As we're seeing the boomers retiring, we're seeing a lot of them transition over to RVs, wanting to go to RV parks. People are using it to travel to go see their kids and grandkids. So it's definitely a market that's got some long-term viability. And that was part of the analysis to make sure that we weren't thinking about an industry that was kind of on the downhill slide or didn't have any sustainability. So this is a little bit of information, again, about just kind of the ideas for what could be done on the site. They're looking at a kind of a mix of lodging options, hotel rooms. Glamping is a huge industry. If you have some Airstream trailers, you have little yurts, you get a lot more money out of a glamping unit than you do out of your traditional campsite. So thinking about making those mixes. It also allows you to capture different markets. So if you have people traveling through and they're, say, coming over for a conference, we're pretty limited on lodging in our region as well. And so having a place where people could stay at a hotel room, or if you have your own RV, then there's hookups. If you don't have an RV and you want to tent camp, there's tent hookups. If you want to glamp it and you want to spend a little bit more, there would be glamping units. So they looked at all of those types of accommodations. One of the things that we really focused on a lot with our focus groups was what kind of amenities would people want to see. And some of these amenities are also community amenities. There was a lot of talk in the community about this bringing value to the community as a whole. And so we talked about, could this support a pool, and could that be a community pool as well? So could the community use that pool? Could there splash pad, the rental facilities, walking trails through the RV park? Can it be designed so that the community also can utilize those spaces? RV parks are really fun. They have lots of walkable space. They're great for kids to be able to ride their bikes in a safe location. So how do some of those amenities also provide value to the community? So we looked at a whole host of ideas, and this is kind of what they built into the mix. So this is kind of a revenue analysis, and I won't go too deep into this. There's just a lot of numbers associated with this, but ultimately what they came up with through their analysis was that it was a viable project, that it does have solid revenue potential, it does have a fairly strong return on investment, and that it is something that they feel that the market would support and investors could look favorably upon. Whether they will or not, I don't know, but the numbers look pretty good. So behind the scenes, there's a lot of data, a lot of spreadsheets, analysis going on to bring forward these numbers. Like I said, we're wrapping up this grant, and so we're going to be providing this to EDA so they can kind of see the outcome. What we're also hoping is that EDA will look. They're pretty excited about this project and just the amount of interest that it's gained. And so we're hoping that this will help us to apply for additional funding to maybe do more project analysis, or there's potential to utilize this to apply for funding to do infrastructure improvements and things that would be supportive of this type of growth. So we're hoping that that will also be kind of an effect from this project. They're projecting that this would be, an 18 to $20 million project. This isn't a cheap project. This is a ground up project. There's a whole host of ways this could be done. And obviously, this would rely on an investment developer coming in and looking at this and making those decisions, or it could be a team, or it could be a phased project. We don't, it's a concept, but it's a concept that we have now that has some good numbers behind it, some good information, and it allows us, like I said, to continue to move forward in a more educated manner. So these are just some imagery that was generated through those focus groups. People really wanted to focus on having some connectivity to our industrial heritage. So using woods, using metals, kind of incorporating different aspects of nature, maybe pulling in structures that look a little bit more industrial, but have these fun different uses. So this was some of the imagery that people were really excited about. This is kind of focusing on what uh, the the focus groups thought about the actual sites themselves and kind of what they wanted to portray. They really wanted it to be nature focused. They wanted it to be um, more outdoorsy, less parking lots, less concrete, more interactive space, so that it really provides the capacity to kind of blend in with our natural environment and not create something that just really sticks out and seems unnatural or doesn't fit. If you see a lot of the new RV parks that are being built now, a lot of them just look like big parking lots. They're very flat. They don't have a lot of landscaping. The trees are very small. And so that was all kind of factored into that development budget, which included purchasing very mature trees so that there would be a lot of shading, and making a higher level investment into the landscaping so that this would be more of a not a kind of a cocoon development, but something that had more connectivity to the natural space. The goal that they talked about was this idea of mountain modern. So having that kind of rustic feel, but at a higher level of furnishings and amenities. So creating a feel of being out in nature, but still really being very comfortable. And so, looking at kind of higher price points, you really need to balance the experience with that comfort level as well. These are just some pictures of ideas on glamping. They built into their budget the idea of kind of the Airstream Village. If you've ever seen these are really fun. People take the Airstreams, fix them all up. They're really really cute. There's also the ideas for yurts and different. Um, there's honestly a whole range. You can do little tiny houses. People do regular tents just on platforms. So there's a lot of options. But this was one of the areas that they focused on, was kind of the glamping side. This is just kind of a little rendition of a site map. This is a pretty low density concept. It's not a ton of RV sites. It's pretty spread out, um, because the idea was not to over densify the project, but to have a more of a quality project, and maybe rather than densifying some of the RV sites, so everyone's on top of each other, putting in nicer amenities as far as like gathering spaces and things, so that it's not an overwhelming type of development. This is kind of a layout of how this could fit on the property. If you'll notice to the, oh gosh, how's this going to look for you guys? So if if you look where the big parking area is, that has been reserved in this kind of development idea, reserving it for any type of future energy type projects. So we've talked a lot about the fact that there is a transformer on the site, there is a connection to PG&E. What does the city's opportunity look like as far as either energy production or energy sequestration, I guess you would call it. So we have been looking at a battery storage project, which I think is really interesting and really exciting, and something that's very, I say it's kind of benign because it doesn't have a lot of impacts as far as noise, air quality issues. You're literally looking at some shipping containers and not even that many. Basically, they're full of battery storage walls, like Tesla walls, and you buy energy when it's cheap, and then you send it back out on the market when it's necessary. So we've reserved that whole area, kind of thinking that we want to, look at what our options are for energy type projects in the future. But this is just more showing kind of the carrying capacity of the site. Like I said, this is 20 acres. There's a lot that could be done with this project site. So they started to kind of lay this out so you could kind of get a feel for how something like this might fit. And this is where Storyland really starts to kind of shine. They are really good, like I said, at kind of providing a vision, a context, building the story so that you can physically see it. And that was something that, like I said, we really needed help with because we weren't able to articulate that in any way like this for people to actually see. Because like I said, it's hard to see it when you just drive down there and see an old rusty biomass plant. These are just some of the features that they looked at. This idea would be kind of a gathering conference hall. It could be used for receptions, different events, and then the open space. This is a multitask space, so you could do music, you could do reunions, gatherings, a whole host of things. So creating these larger pockets for multi-use space was something that we really wanted to kind of focus on. Off to the blue court over there. Those are pickleball courts. So pickleball and RVs go hand in hand. It's that demographic, it matches up really well, and pickleball is super popular, and it's another super growing recreation sport. So the idea of having more pickleball courts, you could do pickleball tournaments, you could do pickleball clinics, you could just have pickleball for people who want to play and stay at your facility. This is kind of a rendering of what an entryway could look like. One of the things that came up as an idea that I think is something that would set Blue Lake apart is the equestrian side um, of RVing and camping. We have a really great location for equestrians when you think about, the ability to take your horse and ride on Clam Beach to, for free, to ride in the redwoods, to come over here where the weather's a little bit cooler. We all know it's getting hotter, especially for people over on the I-5, Corning, Red Bluff, Sacramento area. When it's getting 120 degrees out, wouldn't it be nice to bring your horses over to Blue Lake where it's nice and cool and you can ride on the redwoods, you can ride on the beach and have that experience. And then you can come back to Blue Lake and we have a horse arena and other trails. So we wanted to also look at equestrian options, which would allow for the larger, like living quarter horse trailers to be able to park here and maybe have some areas where horses also, so you could have some like rentable pens. And that was something that Storyland was like, oh, we never really thought about that. But you're right. If that's a niche industry, and maybe in the future this site could have a covered arena. Corning has a really great arena. It's covered. It gets used a lot by people all over. There's no reason why our region couldn't have have one as well, and it could fit really nicely with this. So looking at kind of the diversification, obviously the mountain bikers are a huge part of our thought process and our focus. Our mountain biking trails are just becoming so renowned that we're, the ability for people to pull in here with their sprinter vans and the other camping amenities is something that we think is a great market to focus on. These are just some renderings again of ideas of outdoor space. And like I said, these are just concepts, but I think knowing that there is some level of economic benefit to this. These are really nice renderings to be able to show and kind of show the carrying capacity. So the focus on the family, outdoors, connectivity to space. They've got people playing cornhole and the kids, going down slides and a splash pad feature. And then this is a rendering of how the glamping, could look on the site, which I think is really fun. And it feels very specific. I feel like this guy is any guy in Humboldt sitting there with his cooler and his Humboldt sweatshirt and his Yeti cup there. So, and there's some mountain bikes in there, so that's great. And this is kind of the idea for the little lodging facility. It's not big. I think it's 40 rooms at, but it's a nice feature. Like I said, it gives us the opportunity to capture another demographic. I think it's always fun. Like they have the lady riding her horse down the sidewalk, so that's cool. So, thinking about different markets that we can capture at different times. What do we do during the winter? What do we do during those shoulder months where maybe it's not the summer tourist season? Do we capture those people coming through for conferences? Do we capture them coming through, for different events or maybe just traveling through? I know when I did the hotel casino in Klamath, one of the benefits that we found with our location was people going from Portland to San Francisco, and we were kind of right in the middle. And so we were capturing during the week, we captured a lot of business travelers, and that was something that we hadn't really thought about. But that's something that Blue Lake is kind of in that same boat. Maybe we're a really good stopover point during the week. And then there's also the steelhead fishery. Thinking about the winter options, steelhead fishery. Sometimes we have a really great steelhead fishery. We haven't in the last couple years, but that can change any given year. So that kind of looked at the RV park and campground. We were also able to utilize the funds to do a little bit of work on the north side of Taylor Way. And this is an area where we already have development and we have some proposed development. We have a bike park. So we really wanted to see how we could connect the spaces. And I think for staff, the biggest pull from this was thinking about infrastructure. So connectivity of infrastructure is really important to think about. Looking at the roadway. This gave us a really great opportunity to kind of look at this a little bit more holistically, to be like, we've got a bike park going in, what are any concerns on the road or the trail? How does the trail connect? So I thought this was a great opportunity for the city to take a look at this a little bit more kind of bird's eye view and a little bit more holistically. Um, like I said, these are all concepts and ideas, but it does help you through the process as we're moving forward. So the grant also allowed us to do some of the master planning work on the north side. And so we were able to plug in some of the projects that are currently being looked at. You will see this is the city corporation yard. This is a project that the Eisners have been talking about, kind of the shipping container project where they would use shipping containers to build like a recreation store, maybe a food truck location, and some other small development. This is the Russo's project that they're currently working on. This was a concept for some live work units. that could be placed in this location. This is the Bodawat Affordable Housing Project, Mixed Use Development Project. And then you can kind of see this is our bike park. This is my favorite project of the whole thing. And so you can see where they were able to kind of show, some connectivity to spaces, how roads could be kind of laid out. So this was a really fun process to be able to work with them on and kind of look at ideas for the future here. So these are just more renderings. This is Monda Way. So instead of looking at Monda Way as just a cul-de-sac, maybe you look at it as more of a plaza, and a plaza that can provide a better access to different parcels. And these are just some renderings of what some live work units could look like. Like I said, we don't have any of this, but it's an idea and a concept. And this is kind of an interesting slide because this property here is the old garbage dump, the old city dump. And it's something that we've talked about a lot amongst staff about, what do we do with that in the future? As we're doing the creek restoration project, we've looked at it a lot to see, could it be folded into the restoration project? Does it make sense to use that area to meander the creek? Maybe that's an area where we have more activity for people to interact with the creek. Maybe it's an area like an interpretive area. So we've designed the creek restoration project to include a pedestrian bridge because the biggest impediment to this property is the fact that it's accessed by like a 10-foot wide little lane. So we know that the access for the public coming down Ivy Lane isn't appropriate, but it would make a wonderful place to walk across a bridge and be able to interact with this space. So like I said, obviously this is a concept and an idea. Currently, it's a vegged over kind of, I don't know, well, it's a cleaned up garbage dump. It's not a garbage dump anymore, but it definitely doesn't look like this. But in the future, who knows? This was just some signage. People really like the idea of using metals and things to kind of have that connectivity to our industrial heritage. So this was just kind of some ideas on how some of that signage could look. This is just more of an overview of what some campsites could look like. And that is the end of the presentation. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Gary's also here to talk about any of this, the concepts, and kind of what the city's ideas are moving forward and kind of what next steps are.
Thank you. That's really exciting to see. Thank you so much. Does the council have any questions or comments? I'm very excited about this possibility, and it all looks really like something that would be such an asset to our town.
Just a little bit of that would be nice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you start out slow, you start out small with the RV park, and then if it can sustain itself, then you could move on from there. But just to have a concrete slab and stubs for people to hook up to is just not what we want to see. So something natural like that would be really, really attractive. Yeah.
When you were, I know this is all conceptual, of course. When back on the slide that was tailored towards more the equestrian component, it got me to thinking a bit about, Cal Poly and CR's joint announcement about bringing rodeo back.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about that, and I know that typically, I mean, when you have rodeo grounds, folks have spaces, to camp out there. But then that got me thinking also to high school rodeo. So I'm not sure, would that be, is there a conceptual idea about, having a high school rodeo ground there? Because we're section 1, 2, we're 2 up here, which would be, then kind of a component to, the Corning area. I didn't know if that was like something that was also being,
Yeah,
potentially,
absolutely.
potentially looking at the heat element
Mhm.
versus the coastal element. Just, I mean, and I'm thinking like maybe 20 years down the road or whatnot, but
Yeah,
that
we
equestrian component is
absolutely
kind of
could.
an interesting
Yeah.
thing to, an interesting thing to dig into.
Yeah, and we did, that has been that was a topic of conversation quite a bit, and it's something that I really push because I think it's a great fit for Blue Lake. We've always been a horse town, and I love our arena and, and just seeing opportunities to expand that. When I was a kid, we had a full rodeo ground, and so thinking about being able to have that again, I think would be amazing. And I don't know that it's appropriate for that arena to be that end goal, but I
Right.
think this property has plenty of capacity to think about adding a covered arena, sure. And we did reach out to Cal Poly too when we saw the announcement. I thought that was really exciting. So we did reach out and say, hey, you know what? I don't know if you know about Blue Lakes Arena, but we would, also be happy to work with you, or if any of the students or kids or anything,
Right.
need a place to ride or practice, Blue Lake would love to be a part of that. So I think it's a niche market. I think it's something that people really aren't focusing on. And I think it could be, something, even if it's 10 spaces to start out with.
Right.
People have these beautiful living quarter horse trailers and they're amazing. They have pop outs and, they're,
Nicer than my home, to be
they're
honest.
exact. Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And they will spend money,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they need a secure place for their horse
Well,
and then
right.
they'll go and eat in your town and things and
Well, I
recreate.
think the high school rodeo is on an upswing in our area for certain. I know it is in Del Norte, and
Yeah.
just being a little bit familiar with it just got me to thinking. But I think
Mhm.
it's a great concept to begin to explore, for certain. But yeah, that was just something that I kind of thought of. And I don't know anything at all about the mountain biking community, but I think that they're I see them around town all the time, and I think that that's a great niche to be able to latch
Yeah, and
onto for
we
certain.
have the Enduro coming up next weekend, and that's a great opportunity to
Right.
see what kind of impact a
Yeah.
mountain biking event can have because Taylor Way will be packed on both sides of the road with Mercedes Sprinter vans and trailers. We will have,
Are they camping again?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we always facilitate them staying down on Taylor Way because when they're here, they also spend a ton of money in the community. So in the past, we had been bleeding that money because they would come and we would bear all those impacts of people being here, and then they would have to go back to Arcata, Eureka to find lodging. So we've accommodated that over the last few years, and it's pretty amazing how it's grown. But I always say, my gosh, if we had a campground right now, we would be completely full.
Right.
It's pretty eye opening when you see it.
You said it's this weekend?
Next
Labor
weekend,
Day?
the
Oh, okay.
7th, I believe.
Yeah.
Are they still doing they're gonna have the rewards
Yeah, they'll
ceremony
do
down
the
here?
awards in the park and yeah,
That's cool.
it's a huge
The other
event.
thing too is that I'm involved with a 2-day conference happening in Eureka in September, and also another one in October. And finding enough lodging for folks
Mhm.
coming from Del Norte, Humboldt, Mendocino, Lake, and Trinity counties, finding lodging has been a bit of a challenge
Yeah,
for folks. So I mean, in any if there's additional lodging available, that's going to be something that's
absolutely.
going to be appreciated for our out of towners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments from council? This is not an action item, just to let you know. There's no action required. Staff is just presenting the results of the project, and we'll be closing out the grant as all grant objectives have been met. So normally I wouldn't have to open this up to public, but I will be happy to hear if anyone from public would like to make a comment. Um, Lisa and then Kent
Julie too.
and then
Oh,
Julie.
we need to take that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Lisa Hoover, and at the last council meeting, planner Gary Reese proposed a modernization of the general plan of 1986 that will incorporate certain land use elements updates that have occurred since 2021 and improve the accessibility of the plan. Thank you very much, Gary, for that presentation. Of the land use elements that are required by law in the general plan, the circulation element is one of them, and it relates to thoroughfares, transportation, routes for vehicles, trucks, trailers through the city. The circulation element has not been updated. Yet what is proposed for the Powers Creek District, including parcel subdivisions and proposed RV park, campground, and some of the other things that are presented here as concepts, but still, are associated with the closeout of the Storyland grant will notably influence this element of the general plan and affect the Blue Lake community. The primary circulation route, Greenwood Avenue, runs through the center of a residential district by the Blue Lake School, is used by pedestrian bicyclists, and is the primary ingress and egress route for the people who live here. How would the Storyland development scenarios, the tourism emphasis, affect circulation, let alone our sense of community? Time and money are spent pursuing developments within the city, yet we do not have the credentials of an updated general plan, such as the circulation element, to codify such developments. Updating the circulation element into the general plan has not been prioritized. And this quote is from the land use element update. Any proposed land use must be compared with the entire general plan to determine if the project is consistent with the basic land use designation and does not adversely affect an overlaying constraint. Close quote. I ask the council give attention to the role of the general plan, its foundation, including building trust with the community, and the need for the circulation element update, and have that be on the council's next agenda. So I appreciate the time and would like to see if the circulation element, because that is one that is essential to the general plan and to this all these projects. Thank you.
Kansawatsky, they say the circulation isn't needed because we used to have a whole bunch of trucks which don't go down there now, and we're going to have less than that. But that is not the basis for this. It's not the point to work from. It's what's existing there and how much is going to increase what we have currently. I mean, I really wish we'd have these kind of presentations at the end of the meeting rather than us sitting here for an hour, held hostage. I don't know. Did Storyland maybe they did the project, the Klamath Motel that Mandy was referring to up there? Maybe they did that project, and maybe you should ask the Yurocks how that worked for them and who ran that project for them. And it was a disaster. This project here, in my opinion, is very. It's quite the pipe dream. So we're going to have lithium batteries down here, which we might be the first Chernobyl of the storage thing where it blows up half the city because of storage from lithium. You know what lithium batteries do when they go? Anyway, the whole concept is interesting. But you know our tribal partners here have researched all this for feasibility, every single part of it. If it was viable, they have the money, they have the access, they have the ability to do it, but they haven't done it for that reason. I wish we'd quit wasting our time on these big things, pay attention to small things within the city, the community, keep the community small the way a lot of us would like to see. And I'm probably coming back in January, around January 17th, to just see the changes that are happening in this whole room and maybe have a whole new, fresh outlook upon what the people want to have in Blue Lake rather than just Mandy Maker. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Oh, John, did you want to speak? John, I did recognize Julie before you. Could you hold on, please? Julie, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And if you ever just want to go with in-house and then suffer as Zoom people, that's totally fine. I understand this is discussion. I have many points to make as fast as possible. Correct, the city brought this grant forward, however, not by council or by any commission direction. I understand the manager is responsible for writing these grants, but council can request to review them in some manner, I would hope. Only select participants were involved. Access Humboldt has those concerns archived. Again, timelines are very important. All the visions marked as quote we, quote council, quote commissions are not genuine. The public was also told quote we, and as an avid participant, that is not genuine. It's been we to make my point. It's not been we to make my point very clear. Presentations that were given and recorded prior to our council and commissions is still very concerning. That happened months ago. And why do the outside ears get to hear the sales pitch first? And that presentation had no problem screen sharing with any participants. I believe the original grant was 225,000 and the city added 55,000 out of pocket, and it was for disadvantaged communities. That is actually some verbiage that was missed in that conversation. I think a disadvantaged community grant would have given results, not just like project analysis. Partners are constantly being mentioned and never disclosed. Years later, we still don't know who wants to invest. The cleanup for the plant is potentially years out, and so are thousands of tax dollars to any tangible project for this community. Cal Poly Rodeo program no doubt will edge on the equestrians at Ferndale as planned. I've mentioned at Parks and Rec during the rate reviews, competing with our neighboring arenas is never productive locally. And good luck with the cleanup on the site. The old dump site was mentioned in Parks and Rec because the reality of private property for a disc golf course was not an option. The manager was not present at those meetings. And props to Lisa. Please run for council. I fully support you. And as well with Kent, the battery storage is a huge liability for the community's welfare. Thank you. I crammed it in.
Okay, John, you wanted to speak?
Can you hear me? Okay. So I just want to say I think there's some really great concepts in this artwork. I feel that that potentially some of these modules could be added and to our community. I feel that we would need, or I think that we need to develop our city as well at the same time. I feel like we don't have enough additional manufacturers in the old midtown. I think that improving those areas would allow us to collect additional tax revenue. And I want to thank you all for your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Is there any other public comment this time? Okay, again, this is not an action item. This is an information item and discussion, which I think we've had a good one on this. I don't know if staff wanted to add anything. Gary, did you want to add anything to some of the remarks that have been made?
I had met with Lisa Hoover.
This is Gary Reese,
Oh,
our
sorry.
city planner.
Gary Reese, city planner, work for SHN. We do the planning and engineering services for the city of Blue Lake. And I had met with Lisa Hoover at recent office hours that I held. And we went
Good.
over some of the work that was done under the Strategic Growth Council grant back between 2012 and 2015. And Lisa was kind enough to review the draft circulation element from that. And so that's where some of her knowledge about circulation in the city has come from. But um, we do have a draft circulation element that a lot of work was put into under that grant and could be updated to be a little more current with some of the things going on, as Lisa pointed out. So, but yeah, I just wanted to give Lisa some credit for taking a look at that. That was pretty cool. So that's
you.
really it. Is there any questions for me?
No. I don't have any, but the council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had one comment about the Storyland concept, and that is that I feel that the Storyland concept is a reflection of a limited group of people that participated in the process with Storyland specifically. I know that the general public was not invited to participate in that process. It was an invitation only situation that interfaced with Storyland. And so it's not surprising that when Storyland first presented their idea to the community, there was a lot of concern about the scale and scope of this project as it's presented. And I think it's perfectly reasonable for us to say, well, this is kind of a pie in the sky idea. This may not be appropriate for Blue Lake. But I think also inviting the community as a whole with an open invitation to partake in these processes at the ground level is really critical. Because you get a different idea. You have a different concept of what the community wants. I know that we're here as elected officials, and our commissions are filled with folks that we've appointed. But I think there's a possibility that along the way, we might lose touch with what our general public wants, and to invite all of our public all the time into our process is critical. And so where I can appreciate all the time, money, and work that went into this project, I feel that it's failed on the level where it doesn't fully represent what our public is asking us to do. So I just like to make that point at this juncture and say that before we build something, I hope that we're going to circle back and include the public in the choices that we make. Thank you.
And you understand that we're not going to build this. This is something that we're going to
We don't really
have someone
know.
else.
I
Well,
understand
I
what
don't
some
think
of
the
the
city can
ideas.
afford to. It's going to have to be someone that private funds this. Um, any other comments or questions from council? And we'll move on to our next item, which is adopt and paint a fire hydrant program. This was very exciting. I was at the Arts and Heritage Commission meeting and learned a little bit about this um, project. And the Arts and Heritage Commission, in partnership with Blue Lake Volunteer Fire Department, has developed a project that will bring art into our community while at the same time updating our fire hydrant infrastructure. The proposed Adopt and Paint a Fire Hydrant program will solicit community artists to adopt a local fire hydrant for painting, and it is proposed that hydrants be painted on a designated date. This will create an opportunity for the city to host an art day that will encourage community participation on many levels. The Arts and Heritage Commission is asking for council's authorization to release the project to the community. The city proposes to support the project by purchasing the paint for the hydrants and marketing and organizing the event. This will be done in coordination with the Arts and Heritage Commission commissioners along with Blue Lake Volunteer Fire Department. There's a limited fiscal impact to the city that is required to paint and maintain our fire hydrants, and as such, the purchase of the paint for the project is an allowable expense. The estimated budget is $250. And the recommended action is that we authorize this to occur. And there's quite a few guidelines when it comes to painting a fire hydrant, particular colors, and you can't have logos and those kinds of things. So there would be a timeline of a design submission period, then a closing date, and a submission location. And an application was also included in this, as well as some drawings of fire hydrants if we don't know what they look like. And again, the guidelines, regulations, and authorizations and program rules when it comes to painting fire hydrants. Would staff like to add anything to the staff report?
Yeah, I think just really quickly, the Arts and Heritage Commission has been looking at different ways to bring art into the community. This is kind of the low-hanging fruit type project. It's a pretty easy project to organize and pull together. Our fire hydrants all need to be repainted anyway, so we thought this would be a great way for the city to be able to provide the paint. At first, we talked about maybe having people adopt the hydrant, making it kind of a fundraiser. But then we were like, let's just get as much out there as possible. So if you have a hydrant in your neighborhood and the neighborhood wants to collaborate on something, like why not let that happen? The idea is to have a paint out day so that we can have it as kind of a fun community event. We talked about, having stuff at the town square, maybe some food trucks, maybe some music, and having, people, can circulate and look at the artists. And so our goal is to also hit up all the different groups to get them to adopt one, the museum, the Little League, the Saddle Club, everyone, just to try and build kind of a fun community holistic event. So like I said, it's a pretty low hanging fruit type project. The impacts are minimal. The regulations are pretty straightforward. I basically cut and pasted from a bunch of different programs to create one for us. So we're not reinventing the wheel. And I think it'll be a fun, easy project to do.
About how many fire hydrants are we considering?
Well, at first we were just going to concentrate on the downtown because that was kind of the goal, is to try and get more art and things going in the downtown. And like John had mentioned, trying to focus more on the downtown to build more capacity. That's a huge focus of the town square. And so we've been trying to put a lot of emphasis on, being able to facilitate more activities happening in that area, because that's just great for the businesses down there, and hopefully it will encourage more businesses to come to Blue Lake. We're limited in buildings. It'd be nice if we had more storefronts to fill, but just helping, using these events to help support existing businesses is really critical. But then we decided, why limit ourselves? Like I said, so if you want to do it in your neighborhood, we didn't want to put a limitation on that. So I think it's kind of just up in the air how many, but we would like to at least get the downtown pretty well covered. And that's
The
probably
downtown,
between 10 to 12 hydrants.
are there that many? Wow.
Mhm.
Okay.
So the cost of 250, is that per hydrant?
No. So what we're planning on doing is we're also going to talk to some of our vendors. We buy a lot of paint from Hensel's, the Mill Yard, Almquist. So we're going to see if they would be interested in donating any paint. But basically, we'll buy the primary colors and then the artists can mix those. So on the paint day, we'll be able to issue out the containers of paint for each one. It's limited on how much you can paint on these. And so there's, certain aspects of the hydrant that have to be maintained, all similar, so that our hydrants are pretty much all the same. We have high pressure hydrants, so we don't have any, blue hydrants versus red hydrants versus green hydrants. So there's very limited aspects of the hydrant that really you can paint. So we think that we can do this well within our budget. And because we have to paint the hydrants anyways, they're all pretty much in need of painting. We're like, might as well paint them artistically and see how this goes out. Very exciting.
I would make a motion that we adopt the paint a hydrant project.
Second.
Okay, before we have the vote and we have a motion and a second, I will ask the council for any other further discussion. If there's none, I'll open up to public. Is anyone from the public wanting to weigh in on this item? Julie?
Thank you guys for making your motion prior to going to public comment. Anytime that council can do that, it's the most productive way for the public to have the best opportunity to give their reflections once they know what that motion's going to be. This is pretty straightforward. But what the mayor read was not in the packet. I did attend the First Arts and Heritage meeting after a year that they had not been able to have a quorum. This project vision was kind of given to them as theirs, but my suggestions at the time was to really not target the downtown. That was kind of the original intent that was given to the commission. I'm glad to hear that that is not so much the intent. I think it's really cool if we could perhaps stage, I know we only have so many hydrants, I'm understanding of that. And if they need maintenance or anything done, obviously those ones would be the priority ones or replacements. However, it's kind of like a scavenger hunt in a way that we could spread these out like Easter eggs throughout town. And as the project builds, we could have more and more, but to have them all in one area, I think kind of loses the effect of it and makes it overwhelming. I think getting the children involved is great. Oh my donkey. Um, One thing that you guys didn't mention during this presentation was the items that were in the packet, which I tried to get that out today to some public members. If we could share that with the school, it was basically the application for it. Kind of, maybe Mandy, you could hit on this after I get off since my background's always annoying. But you guys have 3 documents online that were in the packet that for circulation. Could we please get it to the school? I think it would be really amazing to incorporate our children and their ideas. And there's so many artistic kids out there. Perhaps it could be a class that works together to make a hydrant, like a mural. the fifth grade class sponsored this or something perhaps. I think that would add more community to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to,
Didn't we have
I
somebody else that
know.
wanted to speak?
Okay, we have a council person that's not with us right at the moment. I would like to take the vote. We had a motion by Elise Scafani, seconded by Angela Shull to authorize the Arts and Heritage Commission and city staff to coordinate the adopt and paint a fire hydrant project as described in the attached project proposal.
So will the Arts and Heritage, will the Arts and Heritage Commission determine of the applicants who gets to paint?
Yes.
Yeah, so they will definitely be the ones who review it and make the recommendations. And I feel like, you know, we can make, you know, if someone we asked them to pick 3 locations, you know, if there's 2 people buying, we'll find them another location. So and they can also help them with their concept to make sure it meets the guidelines.
Yeah, that's important. There are definitely guidelines. Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. We are now on item 9, announcement of council vacancy process and application submission deadline. Due to a council resignation, the Blue Lake City Council has a vacancy for a 2-year term seat. At the special council meeting on August 16th, 2024, the council directed staff to advertise the vacancy and bring back applications for review and consideration at the regular council meeting in September. In compliance with the government code section, the city council will be accepting applications for appointments through the September 27th, 2024, 4 p.m. deadline. Appointment consideration will take place at a special council meeting on October 8th, 2024. There's no action needed on this. It's just an announcement. And we've had these posters posted concerning this vacancy. And there is an application process. So that is going forward.
And so beyond the application being on the website, it goes up at the post office, in front of city council,
City Hall.
City Hall, I mean, sorry.
Oh.
And where else? Does it go anywhere else?
So we don't put the application
Or not the
itself out,
application, I'm
but
sorry,
the
the posting.
yeah, so we've posted it. We always do City Hall, the Grange, and the post office, and
That's
then
third.
we try for stuff like this. We also try and do like the community bulletin board. We might do the one in the park, Skinner Store. Try and just get it out as many places as possible, and then we put it. We can get it on different the social media, and the city website.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on since that wasn't an action item. There's really nothing to do about it except to announce it. Item 10 is council correspondence. I received a very nice card with something that I sent into the senior news a couple of months ago about my anniversary with my husband, but I don't know who this card is from. So if anyone would like to tell me, it's very nice. Dear Aline, they don't even use my correct name. Thank you for your continued service on the council, much needed. Ted and you are wonderful in all ways. Always loved Ted's reuse sculptures and seeing him. Take care, Alex. I just don't, I don't know who that is. I think it's Alex. I believe that's who it is. Anyway, it came through the city council, the city hall, and I don't know who it's from. It's very nice, but I don't know who it is. Any other council correspondence? All right, we'll move on then to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the agenda. Would we like to pull any of those to discuss? Or we
think
have
we
3 items. I'm
probably
sorry. We
need
have
to
3.
Pull the third item. The
Okay.
the
Like to pull the
conflict
third.
waiver.
Okay.
I actually just want to be certain. Well, we should
Okay,
pull it.
let's pull it. And then we would want to recuse
Me for B.
Christopher from B. I would ask that that happen. So maybe all we need to do right now is consent calendar item 11A. Is there any questions or comments about the minutes that need to be changed or amended from the city council?
No.
No. Okay, anything from public on the minutes? Okay, back to council for a vote on the meeting minutes of June 25th, 2024.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, we need a motion on
I'll
that.
motion that we accept the minutes for June 2024.
Second. Motion made by Lisa Scafani, seconded by Angela Shull to accept the minutes of June 25th, 2024. Any further discussion from council? Up to public? Back to council for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes. All right, and may it be noted that Christopher Edgar is recusing himself from the warrants and disbursements. Are there any questions from council about the warrants and disbursements?
I do have a question on page 3. Um,
Give us the check number. Yeah.
Yeah, check number. Sorry, little tiny writing. 12203 to Wildland Operators for $11,475. Can you?
Bike
It says bike park, but can you?
Yeah. So Wildland Operators is the person that's been building our bike park. So we have reimbursed them for their fuel, equipment rentals, and some materials, and he's been donating his time to the project. So we've been fundraising to support this project through donations, and we had some PG&E grant funds to help with the build of the project as well. So that's what that cost is associated with.
So that's all funded by donations.
Donations and then
grant.
a PG&E grant. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the warrants from council? No. Any input from public? Kent?
I did see something there on your page 2. I don't have my glasses on. The last check in there, dated 7/29/2024 to CalPERS. It's unfunded accrued liability for year 24 to 25. And my thing is, it's an awful lot of money. And I'm just curious, was that budgeted in your budget? Because if that full amount wasn't budgeted, of course you're going to have to make a budget adjustment. But it just reflects, just so everybody knows, this is what happens when you have a whole bunch of employees and they have retirement things that you have to contribute to. And you have to take in consideration when you're paying these employees, but this gets added to the cost, and that amount is 10% of your budget, basically $100,000. So there's frequently municipalities and things, instead of having employees, will have contractors do a lot of the work for them. Then they don't have to pay that, and that's built into the contract price, and that's the obligation of your contractor, and their employees were paid, and they don't also always have to do certified pay or things of that particular nature. So you can have benefits by not having a list, because as you look down this page, over half of each of this page at least is all employee expenses. I did notice that we are running and you just look down here, there's normal things. Your employees get lots of benefits. One of the payments for dental was $1,100. So I hope your employees appreciate some of the benefits that they are getting. Some other places, like in construction, you're on your own. I mean, that's what an employee gets. So I hope everybody appreciates that. And then I did want to make notice that I think the average to SHN for their bills was around $40,000 per month on this thing. And we do have a lot of large projects ongoing, but all of these costs apparently the large projects are winding down, because of the last budget we have didn't include any large projects as far as your budget going, and those things will come out. I know a lot of those are reimbursed for grants, but then again, you have to kind of always look at that. It is great that it's a contractor to do. And so he's on his own. If he makes a mistake with an employee or has workman's comp or somebody hammers him on that, which happens, that's on his nickel. So that's the advantage of having contractors rather than your own employees on something. So thanks for the opportunity to speak on a few of those topics. And I guess Mandy probably will tell you that we already budgeted that kind of overrun. And that's really unfortunate that that's happening in every municipality, because apparently our when you have that, it shows that your PERS program is not ongoing. It's a Ponzi scheme or pyramid scheme, and eventually will go away because it's not self-funding itself. That's why you have those expenses.
Julie?
Yes, thank you, Elise, for your comment, on the disbursements. I'm gonna chime in with just a little bit of a concern there. California State Horsemen Associations, Region 13, has been renting out the Blake Arena. The primary producer of those, Lauren West, and her husband, Tim West, have donated, I cannot count the hours of volunteer time. They should actually get a recognition at a meeting sometime. They would love to receive that recognition. They're such great-hearted people. After helping Blue Lake Saddle Club for many years, making sure that it was open to the public finally, with no problems with the city, I've been up at McKinleyville Arena helping them the last 4 years, running their secretary and treasury and everything that we have to do to keep that a public facility. We do not charge for Lauren shows at our venue because of just the amazing work that they do as volunteers and community members. So knowing that the bike park people are being reimbursed for their time and everything, please don't forget about Tim and Lauren. They've been an asset to our communities for such a long time. Darcy and John as well. And I just want to say with SHNN, I think it's important that we go back to how we used to do these disbursements with a little bit more itemizing. And I think when we're dealing with SHN, like Kent said on the expenditure amounts, I think the public would like transparency on what projects they're actually working on for those disbursement funds. And me personally, I would appreciate it. I think it adds to a lot of transparency that keeps us comfortable with where the money's being spent, especially on these larger projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, we need a motion, and a second to pay the July warrants and disbursements.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Angela Shaw, seconded by Elise Stefani to accept the July warrants and disbursements. Any further discussion from council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes. And then make sure Christopher can come back in.
Thanks, John.
Okay, so we are waiting for Christopher. He's on his way. We're on agenda item 11C, conflict waiver memorandum of agreement authorization. Philbrook Community Services District has approached the city of Blue Lake with a request to enter into an agreement for services associated with their wastewater system. Philbrook CSD is asking the city of Blue Lake to conduct daily meter reads and a system check of their wastewater pump station. Philbrook CSD will compensate the city for staff time, mileage, and any additional related costs associated with the services. The city currently conducts daily inspections of all of our water and wastewater systems, and due to the proximity of the Philbrook CSD wastewater station, the city has determined that taking on the additional system is reasonable and will not present a burden on staff or the city's administration. The city will not be taking responsibility for any repairs or maintenance. Any issue associated with the system will be managed by the Philbrook CSD and their contracted service providers. The city will be responsible for taking daily meter reads of the main station along with reporting any issues to the CSD representative. In order to facilitate the development of an agreement, the city must agree to a conflict waiver for legal services. The Mitchell Law Firm represents the Philbrook CSD as well as the City of Blue Lake. And as such, Philbrook proposes to engage the services of conflict counsel to negotiate on their behalf. Staff recommends that the council agree to the conflict waiver and authorize the city attorney in consultation with the city manager to develop an agreement with Philbrook CSD and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement upon the final recommendation by the city attorney. And we have the conflict waiver material in our packet. There's fiscal impact. The agreement with the Philbrook CSD will fully compensate for the city for all costs incurred through the provision of the proposed services. And there's a recommended action to accept the conflict waiver and direct the city attorney with the city manager to develop the agreement. So it sounds like the main problem is that they're both, our attorney is attorney for both Philbrook and Blue Lake. And so this just alleviates any conflict for them
Yeah,
dealing
and
with
Fieldbrook
Philbrook.
has offered to retain additional counsel, so the city can stay with Mitchell Law Firm.
Oh, they're going to choose another
Yes.
counsel? Oh,
Yes.
So we don't really need a conflict waiver.
Well, you do. You have to be able to accept that because the way the process works, because they are currently the attorneys for the CSD, so there could be some implied conflict whether they represent them or not. So the city just has to acknowledge the fact that yes, they were their counsel, and so there's just no thoughts of any impropriety or issues associated with it.
So can you share with us you say proximity is close, but where are these facilities we're talking about?
It's just down outside of Glendale, so just past the.
You want me to tell them?
You can tell the exact location.
The exact location, there's one right at the Timmins Ranch. Or not, what's that?
McBar Adams.
Yeah, McBar Adams Ranch. There's one right there.
McAdams Ranch?
Yeah.
McAdams Bar,
Bar.
sorry.
Right there next to the trestle, there's a access point, and then the other one is right next door to the house. That is the underpass that goes over 299 on Fieldbrook Road.
Just past the
Yeah.
trailer park.
And those are community service, they're McKinleyville Community Service District pump stations?
No, they're Fieldbrook.
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 Yeah, it's the Fieldbrooks. Yeah, pump stations.
And their sewer?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, just their sewer. That's it.
Okay. And how are where are the ones that Blue Lake's reading that belong to Blue Lake? Are they in that neighborhood as well?
We have one on Glendale that we read, which is our water, and then we have two, one over this way and one over by the casino. One over by Mondo Way and one over by the casino.
So what's the Blue Lake one closest to the McAdams Ranch?
The
site?
Glendale.
Glendale, and it's our main lift station for the our water.
Okay. Glendale and what?
Fieldbrook
It's-
Road, isn't it?
No,
No,
it's
wait.
Glendale. I can't remember that cross street. What's the one that goes up the hill
It's
there?
Hilltop. No.
Green
It's
Hill?
two- it's-
Green Hill?
No, Green.
Station, it's like labeled.
Isn't it Hilltop?
Yeah, but what's the road that
What's
goes
the
up
road
hill
that
right there?
goes?
The cross street right there. I don't know. It's a few houses down.
So
from
it's
Kermit.
between here and
Between here and
McAdams?
yeah, between here and McAdams Ranch. It's in between.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's in really close proximity. It's a really easy process. It helps Fieldbrook out. We don't take any responsibility for any maintenance. We're literally just taking a meter read, and if we see any anomaly, we just give them a call. They have contractors already on call, and so they would be the ones that would come in, but they don't have anyone to do the work now, and don't really, because it's such a small system,
Right.
they're just not able to really attract anyone. So it makes sense for us to help them out.
It's very difficult because you need someone 365 days a year to do it, and it's only a few hours a week of a job. And so attracting multiple people to cover those days is not easy.
And them not having somebody is a relatively new development.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
They had outside contractors come in.
Okay.
So, and does the person who does this have to have sewer certification?
I don't know what their certification level has to be to take the reads.
That was mentioned at the meeting that it wasn't necessary for that.
but we have operators on call and we have them on weekends. So we check our system every single day, whether it's a
Right.
holiday or a
So,
weekend.
so any one of our public works
that are certified to
employees.
do rounds.
Okay. How many of our public works employees are certified to do rounds?
Right now we have Glenn, and then Jacob has a level 1 water, and then Chris is in training for his operator status for water and wastewater.
So does that mean that Jacob and Glenn can currently do readings, or only
It's wastewater.
only Glenn?
Only Glenn, because it's the wastewater, and they're the only. Glenn and Chris are the only 2 on rounds, anyways, unless we have an emergency, and then Jacob can come in on limited applications.
But even though Chris doesn't have his sewer
He's in
certification yet,
training.
he can still do it.
He's in training
Oh,
under
IT.
he's under an operator.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second? And then I'll open it up to public hearing.
I motion that we, what is it? There we go. Thank you. Accept the conflict waiver and direct the city attorney in consultation with the city manager to develop an agreement with the Fieldbrook Community Services District for services associated with monitoring a Fieldbrook Community Services District wastewater station, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement upon the final recommendation by the city attorney. Big one.
Does that mean we're gonna see that final MOU and accept it, or we're not gonna see it?
No, I would propose that because it's so minor, that if you guys are giving us the authorization to move it forward, with the attorney's approval, I'm asking for authorization to sign it. I mean, if you want it to come back, but it's, like I said, it's a pretty low level, type of issue, and the attorney will be providing the context.
Russ
So,
Gans is going to be providing or
Yeah.
putting together the MOU.
Yes.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? And then I'll ask for further
I second the
discussion.
motion.
Okay, seconded by Christopher Edger. Any further discussion from council? Any public input? Lori, Ponte, Julie, and then Kent.
Thank you. So I have a little bit of a problem with Chris being the second on that vote, since he's actually the one of the employees doing the work. That's one thing. And I would ask that until you see the MOU, you vote on that, you take this on. It might be low hanging fruit, but what is the reimbursement to the city from Fieldbrook? Is there additional cost if it happens to be overtime? There are personnel costs to the city that may not be part of what is the cost to Fieldbrook if you're looking at it being an emergency. So it's just kind of a fiscal thing and an employment. And so I would suggest that you look at the memorandum of understanding before you accept this agreement, even if it's minor. It still is an employment and task issue for the city of Blue Lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie?
Yes, thank you. I think it was very valid to ask for locations. That was going to be one of my first exact questions. So thank you, Elise. That should have been crucial packet material just to speed up these meetings. I just am with Lori in a way, in the sense that there's got to be an incentive for the city to take this on. It can't only be like, let's help Philbrook. I know that you're working on the process of that, but I think it needs to come back. I do not think this is something council should table off back to staff. We need to know what that agreement's going to be. We need to know how our staff time's going to be affected, and we need to know the cost that is going to cost our city potentially, because fuel isn't going to get any cheaper. Fixing your rigs isn't going to get any cheaper. I mean, the cost of, even though it's so close, they do add up when we're doing these. So we need to know how many times are they checking these. So for the public to really respond back to this, it does need to come back for transparency reasons. Thank you.
Kent?
Well, I'm glad you have a mutual law firm working with this agreement you're doing. I don't see. I think you should do a favor for the. I feel you should do this for the district. I mean, you have partners for partners. There's no reason not to share this. I think you should also go ahead, and the waiver should have included where they wouldn't have to go get another attorney. I mean, it's really common for them to use one attorney on these things. That's not at all abnormal. I don't know why that was. I'm trust Russ Gans. I think one of the things, if you guys do review it, that there's going to be a hold harmless and indemnification clause that say we didn't read it and there was an accident or something happened or we misread it and something happened. We don't want to have any liability because we could have a potential mistake. Things happen, so that should be covered under that agreement. It's always nice to take a final look at those things and let the public see them and know the cost, but strongly support doing this. I mean, totally makes sense that we engage in this the partnership with our other agencies. It's fantastic. Lastly, I did wish to say I really appreciate. I just want to let you know, Nona Virna was not here tonight. She had another thing, otherwise she would be. And I appreciate all the people from the council members who showed up, who may want to be in the chairs being here tonight. So that was very good. I guess that was another topic you had there that's taken into consideration when you make your appointment. The people who are in the audience, especially this late in the meeting, must really want to be in the chairs for appointments. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this tonight.
Is there any other public comment? Yes, John?
Hi, thank you again. So I just wanted to say that I think it would be wise to wait and see the final MOU. It's not that we don't trust anyone, but I think that it's the council's due diligence to review these items, and it shouldn't take too long. Next time, I'm sure it would be ratified rather quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. We've had a motion and a second. Motion made by Angela Shaw, seconded by Christopher Edgar.
I do think listening to everybody advise that we take a peek at it before we go forward would be a really good idea. So I don't know. We might want to consider amending the motion to
No,
to
that's
have
fine.
another look.
And no, and I don't mind amending the motion for certain. I do want to address concerns about not doing this for free. Particularly since right here in the general information, Fieldbrook is absolutely sorry about that. Fieldbrook is absolutely saying that they will compensate the city for staff time, for mileage, and any additional related costs. So I just wanted to make sure that that was very clear, that Fieldbrook is not anticipating that we are going to just, do a buddy favor here. No, I absolutely am not opposed to amending the motion that the MOU come back for final approval. I don't know how to do that legally. Can I just
amend
amend
your
it?
motion because you're
You
the
can
motion
amend your
maker.
motion
Okay.
and then
I amend my second.
he has to amend the second.
Can I just say I amended, or do I have to read the whole thing all over again?
You have to amend your motion officially.
Okay. All right. So here we go. All right.
And do you want to make the second since maybe they didn't like? Sure.
Okay. So I would like to.
Well, you probably should because you've already done it. You've already.
No, we don't have to.
Because it's going to be
Because
amended.
I'm amending the motion.
Okay.
So I'm going to amend my first motion to accept the conflict waiver and direct the city attorney in consultation with the city manager to develop an agreement with the Fieldbrook CSD for services associated with the monitoring of the Fieldbrook CSD's water waste station, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement upon final recommendation by the city attorney, and bring the final MOU back to the next regular city council meeting
For final approval. by
for
the city
final
council.
approval by the city council.
I second that.
Is this time sensitive, Mandy?
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine in a month. Okay. All right. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is any further discussion from council? Anything from public?
Where I made a motion. Okay.
Back to council for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes. Reports of council and staff. We'll go around the council. And did you attend any meetings, Chris? No. Elise, did you attend any meetings?
I did. I went to an RCEA, Redwood Coast Energy Authority meeting. We are, well, the one big thing that I have to announce is that Redwood Coast Energy Authority is going to be the administrator of an $87 million project. The grant is coming from the Department of Energy. It's a grid resilience and innovation program. And our specific program is Tribal Energy Resilience and Sovereignty Program. There are 4 tribes involved in this: Hoopa Valley, Yurok, Karuk, and the Blue Lake Rancheria. And each of those tribes is going to be developing and building a microgrid that will increase the energy resilience in their communities, especially Hoopa Valley, Yurok, and Karuk. They all have some of the least reliable energy grids. And so where like an typical power outage out there is like 4 days. So this program is going to create a situation where there's going to be a much more resilient energy supply. It's a huge opportunity, and it's great that we're going to be administering that locally here and partnering with Blue Lake Rancheria, who has done microgrids in the past. They have their own microgrid here in Blue Lake, and they were partnered with RCEA on the microgrid at the airport. So that's pretty exciting news, and that's the most exciting thing I have to share.
Is that being funded all by the RISE Catalyst funds? Do you know?
No, that's coming from the it's all coming from the Department of Energy.
Okay.
Federal.
Okay. I'm on the board of the Blue Lake Museum, and I attended their meeting last Monday, which was yesterday. It seems like a long time ago. Anyway, the museum roof was fixed. Just to announce that they're open through the month of October, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4. And they just got a donation of over 100 paintings from Yvonne Reynolds, who passed away. She was a local artist, and they're looking at having some kind of an art exhibit / sale of those paintings. I will be attending on September 13th the League of Cities meeting in Eureka at 2 o'clock at the Warfinger building. After the meeting, we will be going to Sequoia Park and going across the Redwood walkway up there, which I've been to once, so this will be my second time. And then there will be a dinner afterwards. Okay.
REDEC last night, we had a program presentation from Scott Thompson, who is the project manager for Nordic Aqua Farms. They are in some final stages out there. And by final stages, what that means is that they are close to being able to go out to architectural bid. Not there yet, but getting close. What might be commonly known is that they're no longer interested in farming for Atlantic salmon. They are now farming for yellowtail. One of the things, so there was just, they basically did a slideshow presentation of what the Nordic farm would look like, and in essence, really how it would differ from the Nordic farm in some of their other Nordic farms, in that they're looking to really maximize space here to ensure that there's not a lot of travel distance and whatnot. So there was that, and then let me see, what else have we got going on here. REDEC has done quite a bit of economic loans this year. Lots of small business development has happened, which has been really great. One very, very sad thing for the community. Scott Adair is no longer part of the county economic planning development. He's no longer the director. He he has been courted by Santa Rosa for quite a while, and they in essence offered him a position that he could not refuse. So Natalie Arroyo gave us that information last night. And so that was a bit of a blow. But so there was that, and then the other thing too that was really interesting. So I'm not quite sure where we're going to go with that, but the other interesting thing, one of the REDEC board members, Danny Kelly, who is with College of the Redwoods, has been hired as a part-time employee with the Rancheria here in town as a community services coordinator. And in essence, the Rancheria's educational foundation, Allison Robinson, um, they've secured a Carl Perkins grant, and that Carl Perkins grant is designed to get 9th through 12th grade students into workforce learning opportunities. And there, through Arcata High School, there is a workforce experience exploration class. And students enrolled in that class actually get to get credit, community college credit for doing workforce development opportunities. That can be, it doesn't necessarily have to be during that class period. It can be weekends, it can be nights, it can be whenever. It can consist of paid internships, non-paid. It can consist of job shadowing opportunities. It's quite flexible. They do have the reason I'm bringing it up is because there are several kids who are currently enrolled in that class who do not have placements. And so if anyone here is looking for students who could potentially be, who they would like to be able to have a mentor or job shadow with them for the semester. I do have Danny's contact information, and he would love to be able to connect you with the workforce opportunity teacher at Arcata High School so that that kiddo does not get kicked out of class and actually get some workforce experience opportunity. And in essence, this is part of a statewide opportunity to really get kids as they graduate from high school employable skills as they leave high school and soft skill training so that as they leave high school, they actually have employable skills. So if you are in a position to be able to take on a 9th through 12th grade student as either, a job shadow kiddo or an intern or whatnot, I will give you Danny's contact information.
How many hours is that program?
I believe it can be, I think it's like 12 to 16 hours for the semester, for the entire semester.
That's all.
It's pretty limited. I mean, it's very flexible, and basically they just want to be able to start getting kiddos into those soft skill type learning exploration activities.
Soft skill.
So soft skill means, for instance, my husband, the contractor, who looks at one of his 18-year-old employees and says, "You can't be standing on a roof with a hammer while you have a cell phone in your hand texting your girlfriend."
Why not?
No, you can't come back from lunch late because your girlfriend wanted you to bring her Taco Bell. Those are soft skills, right? No, you can't be blaring, Judas Priest in the home while the homeowner is there. So those kinds of soft skill type things, right? Being able to use a different register while you're speaking to a homeowner or your employer versus the register that you speak to your friends with. So those are soft skill type things that kids leave high school oftentimes not knowing how to do. They don't know really what it means oftentimes to turn in a timesheet on time every week or every pay period. And so it's those kinds of things that this Carl Perkins grant is looking to teach kids how to do. As well as matching them up with employers where students might think that they want to take a career choice in. So it's not just the soft skill training, but it's also the whole, hey, I think I might want to work in healthcare, or hey, I think I might want to, not to pick on you, an engineer, right? So it's not just the soft skill component, but it's also this idea of, oh, I think I might want to, and then kind of double dipping into that arena. So I could go on, but I'm not gonna. It's late. So, but if you would like Danny's contact information to learn more about it, he's really there's I think he said there's still 6 kiddos in this classroom at Arcata High School who don't have placement. And I think if I can't remember the date, I want to say it's like September 14th or something. But if they don't get a placement, then they have to be relocated into another section, and they don't get to stay in the class. So, and like I said, the timing is very flexible. So, anyhow,
And just to clarify, the Rancheria is not in our town. They are a sovereign nation next to our incorporated city. I just want to clarify that because you said our Rancheria in town. They're not in our town. They are they are a sovereign nation next to our incorporated city. Anyway, sounds like a good project. Managers report, we all have. I had a question on page, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry. That's not the right page. Page 3. When you were talking about property negotiations at the bottom, towards the bottom, you said city staff are in discussion with Jim Morehouse and James Brown regarding property developments acquisition options for property located in the Powers Creek district. What property are we talking about there?
So they're interested in the property adjacent to their building. So it's the kind of the frontage of the trail. It's where the kids had their kind of pop-up bike park area where they do the cyclocross event. It used to be our old green waste area.
Of Mondo Way, just off the
So
circle.
right when you come across the bridge.
The hill there with all the trees on it next to the trail at the end of Mondo Way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just kind of a
So-
little carve out section.
So that was authorized by the previous council to enter into negotiations with them, was it not?
I don't know how many council members here were part of that. I believe
None. I think this was
No.
done right
Yeah,
before
I
the
wasn't.
election, or
Mhm.
maybe say October.
Well, this is
I
so
was
this
involved in it.
action is to bring back would be to bring back an ENA for council's consideration. So we were authorized to discuss it to be able to bring together a proposal to bring one back to council.
Okay. I have a question on the last page of your report, the Callaway FEMA Disaster Funds land acquisition.
Mhm.
So what properties are we talking about?
So this would be the Kyle Boughton property. This is the property located between basically the brewery property and Frank Onstein's property.
So the
And
little
then
strip that's along Hatchery.
yes, and then the old Hawkswell property, which is now owned by the Gritness family, which is across from where the city's other well site is, across from the brewery, basically.
But that's not city land there, is it?
That's in city limits.
Oh, it
Yeah.
is.
Mhm,
Oh.
that piece is.
No, I mean, I know it's in city limits, but it's private property, isn't it?
This is for an acquisition of private property.
Oh.
So what's happened, there's a disaster declaration, and so there's FEMA disaster funds available for land acquisition to mitigate flooding. And
Ah.
part of the problem is that those properties have been experiencing more regular and frequent flooding than they ever have. And so the property owners are kind of in a kind of a strange situation where they really need to, in order to have any return on their investment, they really need to maximize development. The problem is there's active flooding taking place, and which will create an ongoing flood problem. So FEMA will provide funding for acquisition to mitigate funding, which basically takes the property out of development potential. So we've worked with the two property owners, and they were agreeable to us submitting a preliminary application to see if this would be a fundable project. It made it through the first round to the sub-application portion. And the idea would be to acquire the properties and then incorporate them into the creek restoration project to be able to do a larger mitigation project. It's also the Hawkswell property is also in close proximity to the old Blue Lake. So there could be opportunities to find additional funding to possibly connect the old lake back to the creek. It could be used for habitat restoration, park space development, but it would give it would give that capacity for the city to continue to look at that option. So it's a ways down the road. They say funding usually doesn't come in for like a year. But we wanted to explore the option in the event that it was something that FEMA could fund. We will have to come up with a 25% match, and that can be a match in kind of a bunch of different ways. In the application, we proposed an in-kind match, and also working with partner agencies. We could write another grant through a different funding agency and use that as match for the project. So right now we're kind of in a conceptual stage, but we didn't want to miss the opportunity to apply for it.
Do we need to have an appraisal of the property?
It would require appraisal. So that's all
Yeah.
part of it. So
Yeah.
the project essentially would be acquisition and demolition. So the Hawksville property has 2 old barn structures on them that had substantial flooding this year. So that's what qualifies the project for this funding, is that you would be demoing existing structures. So you're essentially taking out those potential impacts that people come to, when there's a disaster. FEMA has, if it reaches a threshold, then they have to put in money to be able to do disaster recovery and things. So the program is looking at taking those properties, out of that context so that there's not that ongoing liability or disaster impact
To the
but they would-
property owner.
Mhm. And the city. I mean, with the flooding that we've experienced, had a lot of impact to businesses. It had impacts to city infrastructure. The Kyle Boughton property would really allow us to expand our creek restoration project, and it would give us more flood capacity. So it's a pretty important property. We can still do the project without it, but having the property would also really enhance the project as well.
And the second property, you say it's between
It's next to
between
the
South
RV park or
Church
the
and-
RV storage, between Marias's and the RV storage. It goes
On
back
which
to
side
the
of-
lane. Yeah.
You know those two old
south of the creek.
green buildings on your way to the river bar? It's right there.
Where everyone
Oh,
pulls
that
out,
little patch there.
but it goes back. So
Goes-
there's a 5-acre parcel back there.
Well, the city owns that
We own the little
property
front
where
property.
the old well used to be.
Yeah.
And so what you're
This
proposing
is
is something
property
beyond
behind it.
that,
Behind it, yeah.
including the Hawkswell property?
It is the
Oh,
Hawkswell
it is the
property.
Hawkswell.
Mhm.
But they have a house back there.
There's no house anymore.
Oh, there isn't?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
Other property?
Kyle Boughton's. He's right.
Well-
It's the old Moon property.
Oh,
Yeah, where those 3 houses were for
Mhm.
a long time. Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, I'd be curious to see what the appraisal is on that, because when you have something that's in a flood zone, that kind of changes things. I mean, I know lots in Blue Lake are at 250,000, I think, but
Yeah, it
that's-
depends. I
that
mean, there's a
depends
lot of
on
variables.
with
So.
I don't know with a
Yeah.
wetland,
And that's
I
all
don't
part
know.
of the process, and the property owners knows. Like I said, this is a funding source that came up, and we scrapped together a project. And the property owners are getting a little bit nervous about their development future just because of what they experienced last year. And so this could be an opportunity. It could be kind of a win-win. If it can alleviate them from their financial investment and make them whole, and then the city could acquire it. We might as well, try
Yeah.
and make that effort.
And then that's access to the old Blue Lake there
Mhm.
too, which
Yeah.
I thought. Okay, any other questions or comments from council? Any questions from,
oh, Lori Ponte has something.
I was going to ask for public, Lori Ponte, and then Kent. Lori? Maybe her hand isn't up. I don't know.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Sorry about that. So thank you for the time. I understand trying to help property owners get out of a sticky situation, especially with the flooding events that we've had. And doing the appraisal, the output to look at whether that's a feasible acquisition by the city. I'd like to know where in the budget that is available, where those funds are available. And then seen as a win-win, the city gets more property, but is it really property that is important for the city to have? We have property that we're trying to develop and sell.